I won't be voting for him. I don't support him. I'm no fan of his multi-trillion-dollar spending bills, or any part of his 52 years as a career politician. Maybe you agree. Poll after poll shows he's unpopular, with majorities consistently disapproving of his time in office. Even so, I know Joe Biden will be re-elected in a landslide in 2024. And not only that, he will go down in history as one of America's greatest presidents, on par even with Abe Lincoln or George Washington. My guess is you think that's ridiculous, that there's no way Biden will be remembered as anything but a bumbling old man who presided over sky-high inflation. But as I'll show you today, none of Biden's weaknesses, failures, and current unpopularity will matter in November of 2024. As you watch this, a force is building in America. It's a force on a level that America has only seen 3 times before, and each time, it has created life-changing wealth for millions. As I'll show you, this revolution is already well underway. And as it picks up speed, history is very clear on what will happen next. First, living standards will rise for just about every American, as trillions of dollars worth of new economic activity floods into virtually every corner of America. Second, rapidly falling prices and an end to the inflationary nightmare that's characterized the first years of Biden's term. And third, this new wealth will lift every elected leader in America, but especially the president. It will cause millions of people to warm to Joe Biden as they credit him with the immense new prosperity that's transformed their lives. The groundswell of appreciation, even adulation, will boost Biden's ratings to the stratosphere, even as many Republicans call for his second term. And it will make Joe Biden invincible in 2024. Please understand, I don't want this to happen, but it's going to happen all the same. I know how improbable this sounds today. After all, Biden is no one's idea of a political juggernaut. It took a global pandemic and the economic fallout from it to get him into office by the skin of his teeth in 2020, and he's only gotten more unpopular during his presidency. And while I oppose him on most policies, he's also not getting any younger. I know plenty of 80-something-year-olds who are still sharp as a tack, and he's not one of them. But as I'll show you in a moment, something much bigger than either Biden's or Trump's age or personalities will completely upend the 2024 election. Not only will it mint countless millionaires over the next few years, it will also transform this feeble, tongue-tied politician into an iconic figure in U.S. history. How do I know this? Because it's happened before. My name, by the way, is Nick Hodge. Over the last 16 years, I've advised millions of Americans on how to position their money for revolutionary trends, from clean energy to 3D printing, cannabis, precious metals, and crypto. I've pointed my readers to and helped finance companies that delivered life-changing gains in several market sectors, including a 1,639% gain on a lithium mining company in Argentina, 2,300% gain on an electric vehicle stock. I recommended it to readers months before Warren Buffett bought in himself, and a more than 7,370% gain on the biotech company ImmunoPrecise Antibodies, plus hundreds of double-digit and triple-digit percent gains along the way. A few years ago, I moved to the Pacific Northwest to start my own financial publishing company, where I continue to advise my readers, many of whom have followed me for nearly 2 decades. But I didn't put this presentation together just to recap my record for you. I reference my firm's success because something is coming to America that will jolt not only the stock market, but our very financial system to its core. It's bigger than the Great Recession of 2008, bigger than the multi-trillion-dollar rise of the crypto industry, and it's even bigger than the artificial intelligence boom that Goldman Sachs forecasts will create $7 trillion in new wealth. What's happening before our eyes is bigger than all of these forces combined. In this presentation, I'll show you exactly what's happening and why Larry Fink, the CEO and chairman of BlackRock, which has $8.5 trillion under management, calls this a fundamental reshaping of finance. You'll see why it will allow Joe Biden to coast to re-election, just like similar forces have guaranteed the re-elections of 3 struggling presidents before him. Believe me, I have no interest in scaring you. In fact, I want to stress that the next few years will bring enormous new prosperity for most Americans. This new force will create thousands of new millionaires. It will send the stock market to heights that are unthinkable today. Millions of new jobs will be created and inflation will finally fall and become an afterthought for most Americans. But the rising tide of prosperity will make Joe Biden and his Democratic Party untouchable in 2024. It will boost Biden's poll numbers and every Democrat on the ballot with him. After all, no U.S. president has ever lost re-election in a boom economy, and Biden will be no different. He will be inaugurated in January 2025 for his second term, a little older, a little more feeble, but commanding enormous Democratic majorities in Congress that he didn't have in his first term. Using the sudden new power at his disposal, I believe Biden will repeal the Trump tax cuts, raising Americans' tax burdens by over $1 trillion, pass a Green New Deal, a climate bill that's orders of magnitude bigger than any climate legislation he's signed so far, institute a national wealth tax like the one championed by liberal firebrand Elizabeth Warren that targets 800,000 families, and vastly expand America's welfare state with initiatives like Medicare for All that cost trillions of dollars. Now, whether you think these policies are good or bad likely depends on your economic circumstances. People receiving more government assistance than they pay in taxes likely think they're great. But if you pay more to the government than you get back, you probably resent them. Either way, I'm not here to tell you what to think. But if you have something to lose from Biden's agenda, like lower take-home income because of higher taxes, then I urge you to pay close attention. Today, I can show you a few simple steps to protect your wealth and perhaps even grow it substantially during a second Biden term. What's ironic is, what's happening today doesn't have anything to do with Joe Biden himself. Like 3 re-elected presidents before him who once also looked like political toast, Biden is simply in the right place at the right time. Let me show you what I mean. Picture yourself in 1936. It's 4 years into Franklin Delano Roosevelt's presidency. FDR got elected on a promise to put Americans back to work, yet the unemployment rate remains a staggering 16%. But in America's South, a major discovery is giving him political life. Years ago, a 32-year-old Arkansas cotton trader heard of an oil discovery in Texas. He borrowed $50 from 3 friends and proceeded to build an oil and gas empire that spanned 4,000 acres and produced 4 billion barrels of oil. This oil boom put a floor under the U.S. economy in the Great Depression. It created thousands of jobs while driving down energy costs to just 2 cents a barrel. One city manager recalled how everything went into pandemonium despite East Texas being previously one of the poorest places in America. Author Joe D. Lacey, traveling throughout various cities, called their transformations after the oil discovery revolutionary. Businesses in Texas and elsewhere reaped the benefits, and FDR carried Texas in his re-election with a stunning 87% of the vote. Nationally, the windfall helped propel him to victory in 1936 and beyond. And of course, FDR used political capital from his landslide victory to confiscate gold from Americans and trample on other rights. He even threatened to stack the Supreme Court with new justices, an idea that's increasingly popular today. By any reasonable standard, FDR shouldn't have been reelected. Unemployment was at a staggering 16% in 1936, and he created some bitter enemies when he made it illegal to own gold and then said of his opponents, "I welcome their hatred." But the riches of hundreds of millions of barrels of cheap oil washing over America took his power to new heights. It also propelled him to an unprecedented third and then fourth term in the days before the 22nd Amendment limited presidents to 2 terms. And it's not the only time a new national windfall made a struggling U.S. president suddenly untouchable. In 1988, President Ronald Reagan gave a speech in, of all places, Moscow's State University in the Soviet Union. He wasn't there to talk about freedom, conservative politics, or the importance of avoiding nuclear war. So what did he talk about? Microchips. Reagan called the microchip a tiny invention that's transforming the world more dramatically than any event since the Industrial Revolution. Looking back, it's not hard to see why. The microchip was invented in 1958. In its early years, it was prohibitively expensive, so it was mostly used for lavishly funded government projects like the moon landing and making missiles. But from 1971 to 1984, semiconductor production became 560% more efficient as Moore's Law, the prediction that microchips would become twice as cheap and twice as powerful every 2 years, largely came true. Microchips, usually called semiconductors today, have rightly been called the brain of electronics. Simply put, they made every electronic device from dishwashers to cars and computers smaller, faster, and more reliable. At the height of the microchip boom, even the Washington Post had this to say about Reagan. Reagan's policies each unleashed 8 quarters of surging business productivity growth, rising at an average pace of near 3.5% following tax cuts. The Reagan record reached 4.6% productivity growth in the second quarter of 1984. Newspapers noted that under Reagan, America's share of the world's wealth had grown from 28% to 33%, and they credited the microchip boom with the surge in wealth and productivity. Louis Gerstner, chairman of IBM at the time, put it like this: "We are witnessing nothing less than the rise of a digital economy and a new global medium that will be the single most important driver of business, economic, and social change in the coming century." The microchip boosted productivity in almost every sector of the U.S. economy in the 1980s. In fact, after 1982, the U.S. economy saw 18 years of straight, uninterrupted economic growth as machines got smaller, cheaper, and more efficient. It's no wonder, amid the productivity bonanza, that the stock market more than tripled from 1982 to the end of Reagan's term. And it was lucky timing for Reagan. In 1982, halfway through his first term, the president looked like a dead man walking. At the time, unemployment was above 10% and inflation was at 9%. For context, those numbers are even worse than they are under Biden today. You can see why Reagan wrote, "We really are in trouble," in his diary in 1982. But the microchip revolution was already picking up steam. Like Biden today, Reagan was in the right place at the right time. 2 years later, the economy was adding 441,000 jobs per month. Inflation was down more than 50%, and he won 49 states on a romp to re-election. Then there's the case of Bill Clinton, who was only able to win the presidency in the first place thanks to third-party candidate Ross Perot, who split the conservative vote and allowed Clinton to take the White House with 43% support. 2 years into his first term, just 39% of Americans approved of Clinton's performance. The backlash produced the first Republican Congress in 40 years, and his signature issue, reforming America's healthcare system, was killed in the Senate. According to aides, the mounting failures and defeats depressed Clinton. He told them, "I want my presidency back." He fired over half of his aides, desperately trying to turn things around. But his salvation came from something entirely outside of his control: the internet revolution. 2 years before Clinton faced voters a second time, thousands of businesses were flocking to the internet for the first time, and companies were investing billions of dollars to expand their operations online and reach more customers than ever before. As the New York Times put it in 1995, if business takes flight this year in cyberspace, it may be on Buffalo chicken wings, or model rockets, or hot air balloon rides, or any of the other countless goods and services being hawked via the internet global computer web. In the 2 years between 1994 and 1996, when Clinton faced voters, the U.S. economy grew by over 10%. Meanwhile, the dot-com boom created countless millionaires, with high-flying tech stocks like Qualcomm soaring over 6,000% in just 1 year. And so it was that Clinton, a scandal-scarred president under numerous investigations, won a landslide re-election in 1996, taking Florida, Missouri, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. It didn't matter that he had raised every single American's tax burden with a national gasoline tax, or created a tax on small businesses that was among the highest in the world. It didn't even matter that he chose to raise taxes on Social Security benefits, typically the one thing voters never let a president get away with. The dot-com boom created enough wealth to pacify anyone who might have fought back against this overreach. It made even a mediocre politician a shoo-in for re-election. Clinton was in the right place at the right time, and today, it's happening again. Like 3 presidents before him, Joe Biden has more than his share of liabilities. Like Reagan in 1982, he's old and saddled with high inflation, for now. Like Clinton, he's got scandals. But one world-changing force bigger than the oil wealth that rescued FDR, the microchip revolution that saved Reagan, or the dot-com boom that saved Clinton, is now in full swing. It will guarantee Biden's re-election and give him an unprecedented mandate. It will finally bring down inflation and lead even millions of Republicans to stop fighting and maybe even embrace his radical agenda. I'm talking about the clean energy revolution that's now sweeping America and the rest of the world. I know millions of people still think of clean energy as being clunky, expensive, and unreliable. And until a few years ago, that was more or less the case. But thanks to breakthroughs from America's private sector and visionary CEOs, clean energy costs have been falling dramatically for over a decade. And now, clean energy is the cheapest source of power almost everywhere. As Forbes, which no one would call a left-wing rag, put it, renewables are now the cheapest source globally, even without subsidies. And it's only getting cheaper. Offshore and onshore wind power and solar panels have gotten 13% cheaper since 2020, for instance. In fact, the affordability of clean power compared to fossil fuels isn't even a particularly close call anymore. In the latter half of 2022, a megawatt hour of electricity from solar costs just $50, compared to $58 for natural gas and $100 for coal. Wind power was even cheaper at $43 per megawatt hour. With a disparity like this, it's no wonder that last April, Elon Musk said energy from renewables will be $4 trillion cheaper than fossil-fueled power going forward. Now, I realize you've no doubt seen a lot of statistics going both ways in the clean energy debate, but here's what's really striking to me. Clean energy is booming even in places where politicians don't favor it. Deep red Texas, for instance, is now America's #1 state for wind power. In the first half of June 2023, Texas wind farms generated 185,000 megawatts of power, or enough to power over 200,000 homes. Meanwhile, the state is adding 7.7 gigawatts of solar capacity in 2023, enough to power over 5 million homes. In fact, in 2023, Texas added more solar and wind capacity than all other 49 states combined, according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration. This transformation is why Reuters notes Texas now trumps even California as a key player in the energy transition. And of course, Texas isn't embracing clean energy out of any need to virtue signal. Its governor is no fan of renewable energy. He's actually taken as much as $6.3 million in campaign donations from just one oil tycoon. But when it comes to clean energy, Texas, the state most closely associated with oil and gas for over a century now, is just following the money. Don't take it from me, though. Ask J.W. Peters, a man who had just $400 to his name 6 years ago, but now employs 61 people in his Oklahoma-based solar company with $18 million in sales. He says of his home state, "We're the reddest state in the country, and we're an oil and gas state. So it took a lot of time to convince people that this wasn't snake oil. But more and more folks are turning to his company as they hear from friends and neighbors about their lower electric bills. As he put it, the environmental benefits are nice, but most people are doing this for the financial opportunity." All over America, entrepreneurs like J.W. Peters are helping bring cheap, clean energy to people's homes, schools, and businesses. As one CEO, Cathay Zoi, puts it, "It is not a red state, blue state thing. It is a national phenomenon." Or, as Dewey F. Bartlett Jr., the Republican former mayor of Tulsa, who was an oil and gas executive, said, "We have a tremendous sense of pride in our history, but we also understand that energy is energy, whether it's generated by wind, steam, or whatever it might be." According to Bloomberg New Energy Finance, it would cost $196 trillion in investments to zero out the world's carbon emissions by 2050, as many countries have pledged to do, to avoid society-destroying global warming. Starting now, they say, annual green investments will need to nearly triple to $6.9 trillion by 2030 if we are to have any hope of hitting net zero by 2050. When it comes to the clean energy boom and the trillions of dollars in economic growth it's projected to unleash, there are plenty of statistics I could share with you. But let me ask you one question. Out of the over 5,000 counties in America, which one would you guess saw the fastest GDP growth to usher in the 2020s? Maybe the county of San Francisco, with all of its glamorous mansions and white-hot tech IPOs. Or Manhattan, which remains the financial capital of the world. Maybe you're imagining it's a county in Florida, which only suffered 1 day of lockdown during the entire pandemic. But it's none of these. Coke County, Texas, has a population of just 3,300, but the rural county's GDP surged 83% from 2019 to 2021, from 128 million to 235 million. Landowners in Coke County are getting yearly checks of $10,000 to let energy companies build wind turbines on their land. The county itself is getting a $787,000 payment, which it will use to fix roads, create a senior center, and other infrastructure. As Hal Spain, Coke County's top-ranking official, put it, "We're just a poor Texas county. We don't get much economic stimulation here. We're tickled pink about this." And Coke County isn't an isolated example. All over the country, clean energy projects are creating thousands of new jobs and injecting hundreds of millions, even billions of dollars of economic activity into communities that were struggling. Nearby Ford and Throckmorton counties were also among the 10 fastest growing counties in America, thanks to major wind and power construction. And Cheyenne, Wyoming, grew its economy by 77% from 2019 to 2021, thanks to the construction of 228 new wind turbines. All told, 7 of the 10 counties that boomed the most in America in that time saw major new wind power projects. The boom in wind power helped Texas grow its economy by a stunning 7% last year, compared to 2.6% growth for America overall. And of course, it's not just Texas. As Bloomberg has reported, Texas, Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas, and Tennessee have added $100 billion in net income in just 1 year. Where is this flood of wealth coming from? Well, $17 billion in clean energy projects have just been announced in Georgia alone. In fact, last April, Vice President Harris announced the biggest single investment in community solar in history will be in Georgia. It has 2.5 million solar panels and will power 140,000 homes. Already, the state of Georgia employs 80,000 people in clean energy. Do you think it's a coincidence that Biden is pushing clean energy factories and jobs so heavily in one of America's most important swing states? Another swing state, Michigan, is seeing over $8 billion in construction of electric vehicle factories. And one of its biggest utility companies, DTE Energy, announced in July another $11 billion in clean energy projects. Not only does DTE provide 2.3 million people with electricity, but its clean energy spending was approved by various business and energy groups, meaning one of the biggest utilities in America is going green for no other reason than because it's cheaper and more profitable. Meanwhile, North Carolina's governor just announced record job numbers in every corner of the state. Toyota's $3.8 billion new battery plant in Greensboro has certainly helped with that, as will the $42 million in income that farmers, ranchers, and other landowners make from clean energy in North Carolina every year, according to the Department of Energy. You see it in state after state. Billions or tens of billions of dollars are flowing into clean energy projects from private companies that have done the math and are following the money. Some of this clean energy boom has to do with federal law, which showers tax credits and subsidies on renewables. But there's something much bigger than that at play here. America's most powerful companies are spending big to make sure they don't miss this moment. Ford Motor Company has jolted the auto industry by announcing a deal to spend $11.4 billion on 4 electric vehicle manufacturing sites in Tennessee and Kentucky. Last year, Apple bought 2,300 acres in Texas to build a massive solar farm that will generate enough solar to take 3 million gas guzzlers off the road. Shell Oil invested $3.2 billion in clean energy and energy solutions in 2022 alone. And Chevron is spending $10 billion on clean energy. Meanwhile, BP is spending billions on wind, solar, and other clean energy projects. All told, $3 trillion of investment will be spurred in clean energy, according to Goldman Sachs. For context, that's twice the amount of investment the shale oil revolution saw 15 years ago. Now, these energy companies say in press releases that they're doing this for the planet. But you and I know better. After all, emails from Exxon employees showed that the oil giant knew carbon emissions weren't great for the planet as far back as the 1980s. They waited 40 years to act because clean energy investments only started making economic sense a few years ago. We're talking about businesses that are motivated by profit, after all. And with one billionaire venture capitalist predicting that the world's first trillionaire will be made in clean energy, no CEO wants to miss out on the $200 trillion global clean energy transition. This billionaire, by the way, is no limousine liberal. Chamath Palihapitiya recently made headlines with his theory about why so many southern cities are booming now, suggesting that cities like New York and Boston are bleeding income because of their political ideologies. He was responding to the fact that, for the first time in history, 6 southern states have contributed more to America's GDP than the entire Northeastern Washington, Boston, New York City corridor. It's certainly true that America's South is seeing a clean energy boom that threatens to leave the less sunny, less windy Northeast in the dust. And clean energy stocks are already leaving the rest of the S&P 500 in the dust too. In fact, the S&P's 3 top-performing stocks of the last 5 years, Enphase Energy, SolarEdge Technologies, and Tesla, all deal in renewables. Since 2018, they've been up 10,670%, 814%, and 729%. Within the next 5 years, I have no doubt that the next wave of top performers will be in clean energy again too. In my 16 years of helping regular folks profit from revolutionary trends, I've pointed my readers to a few game-changing winners in clean energy already. As far back as 2008, I recommended the electric vehicle stock BYD when it was first listed. My readers and I had the opportunity to get shares just days before Warren Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway bought into the company. It's climbed over 2,000% since then. In 2015, I recommended my readers buy shares in a firm called Lithium X, back when they were just 15 cents each. Just 4 months later, the investors who follow my work were able to sell their shares for $2.61 each. That's enough to turn every $5,000 invested into nearly $82,000. These giant wins were possible because me and my readers were invested more than a decade before everyone else, long before it was popular. Now, I realize that for years you've heard the tipping point for renewable energy was right around the corner. I'm here to tell you that, after a lot of false starts, some irrational mania, and, it's true, some obnoxious sermonizing, the era of clean energy has finally arrived. It's now cheaper than fossil fuels. It's growing exponentially in use. And as it attracts trillions of dollars in investment from CEOs, private equity funds, and governments, it will grow even faster. And remember, markets are forward-looking. They don't respond to what America's energy mix is like right now, so much as what it will look like in a few years. And that means you don't want to wait until clean energy truly takes over before making your move. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying the US or any major economy will stop using oil in 5, 10, or even 50 years. We'll still use tens of millions of barrels a day for the rest of our lifetimes. And some oil and gas companies out there will make for pretty good investments. I still have a few in my portfolio. But just like the last 5 years, I know that the biggest investments of the next 5 years will also be in clean energy. It's not common knowledge, but since President Obama signed a $90 billion clean energy stimulus into law in 2009, it triggered a bull run that outpaced the overall stock market all these years. That's right. Clean energy stocks, like I just showed you, outperformed the overall market since 2009, even as the S&P 500, NASDAQ, and Dow Jones have all multiplied in value and hit record highs. And of course, a handful of clean energy stocks delivered truly life-changing returns. Back when Obama's clean energy stimulus was about to become law, one then-unknown CEO publicly pleaded for assistance to bring his electric car to market. We can't move forward with that without a major amount of capital, Elon Musk said in December 2008. His company got a $465 million loan from the law, and the rest is history. Tesla went public around a year later. I would know. Back in 2013, I could see what it was doing in a still nascent industry and brought it to my readers' attention. I featured the then-unknown company prominently in one of my books, Energy Investing for Dummies, written to help readers profit from a clean energy boom I saw as imminent. And Tesla shares have turned every $1 invested into over 170 in the time since. Their 17,000% rise is part of the reason I was able to pack it all up and leave my Baltimore office to set up shop here in rural Washington. But it wasn't just Tesla. Let me show you what clean energy companies can do when the government showers them with billions of dollars of stimulus. An engine company named Cummins got a $38.8 million loan from the government to help it boost its freight efficiency. The result? Shares soared 1,345% a little over a decade later. Brookfield Renewable Partners got a $169 million partial loan guarantee to build what was then one of the world's biggest wind power projects. Shares are up over 400% since. These stories show what can happen when one of the richest countries in the world throws billions of dollars into clean energy almost overnight. And guess what government official was in charge of overseeing the green energy spending projects resulting from the $90 billion program that Obama implemented? None other than Joe Biden. And it's not just Obama or Biden. Even Donald Trump, who publicly scorns renewable energy, signed a law in December 2020 giving the renewable energy sector another $35 billion in support. The effect this new aid had on renewables was immediate. The Clean Edge Energy Index Fund jumped 19% in a month. Tesla shot up another 25%, adding over $100 billion to its market cap. Fuel cell companies rallied like it was Christmas in, December. The fuel cell battery company Nikola jumped 74% in the following month. They had reason to celebrate. Trump's gift to renewables included billions of dollars in clean energy tax credits. As Bloomberg reported at the time, fuel cell and solar stocks surged on the signing of the COVID bill, capping an already banner year. These rapid gains showed just how powerful government money can be. Of course, that was with $35 billion. In August 2022, Biden signed his so-called Inflation Reduction Act with $370 billion worth of clean energy spending into law. It's coinciding with over $500 billion in private capital flowing into clean energy. And we're seeing its effects. In 2022, EVs were 14% of global car sales, up from 9% in 2021. For the first time ever, 10 million electric vehicles were sold worldwide. The U.S. solar industry grew by 47% in the first quarter of 2023, the best quarter in history. That growth was enough to provide $82 billion worth of new electricity. The writing is on the wall. From solar soaring to wind power doubling the wealth of counties all over America, to sales of electric vehicles surging 55% year over year, it's become undeniable. Clean energy is at the point the internet was around the year 1994. It's where the microchip was in 1982. It's doing to America what oil did in the 1930s. The boom has already created over 100,000 new clean energy jobs and put thousands of extra dollars into the pockets of everyday Americans. I'll say it again. It's not that we won't need oil for decades to come. We will. I plan on investing in oil and gas for the rest of my life. But just as SolarEdge, Enphase Energy, and Tesla led the stock market over the last 5 years with gains of up to 10,000%, I know that the biggest winners of the next 5 years will also be in clean energy. The rising tide of prosperity, lower energy costs, a booming stock market, and hundreds of thousands of new jobs will, whether you like it or not, make Biden invincible in 2024. Utility companies are already sending refunds to millions of customers as they tap into cheaper solar and wind power. Florida Power and Light is refunding $400 million to 5.8 million customers, thanks to a solar tax credit. And Duke Energy is returning $56 million. I don't see this trend stopping anytime soon. The good news is, as hundreds of billions of dollars hit the clean energy sector, there's never been a better time to invest in this trend. I've personally vetted 4 companies that I believe have the potential to shoot up 1,000% as their sales surge on clean energy's ongoing boom. And I reveal exactly why these opportunities are so powerful in some special reports I'd like to send you today. All of my valuable research is reserved for the investors who subscribe to my newsletter, Foundational Profits. This loyal group of readers are already staking their claims as you see this. So to get you up to speed immediately, here's the first opportunity I'd like to brief you on. Special report number 1, the rise of rare earths, the other essential metal in the $25 billion EV revolution. Every electric vehicle, solar panel, and wind turbine will need some combination of 17 metallic elements called rare earth minerals. I've been shouting from the rooftops about the opportunity the global energy transition therefore presents for resource investors. For instance, the clean energy revolution has already allowed me to point readers to a 582% gain on a lithium miner in just 12 months. I can't reveal its name here as my premium subscribers still own shares. But it's not the first time we've been successful on a resource play tied to the clean energy revolution. Back in 2016, when the first lithium boom was beginning, I recommended millennial lithium to readers at 65 cents a share. Within 2 years, it had soared to $4.80, and then it went to $5.25 during a buyout war, giving investors who followed along the chance to cash out for a max profit of 707%. Other plays have been even more successful. I pointed a small group of readers to a 1,639% gain on one lithium play, my record in the clean energy resource sector for now. But one company, nestled in the southwestern American desert, could soon surpass this record. I've taken the dusty trip to America's past and future energy frontier, and I can confirm that we've come a long way. It wasn't that long ago when many North American lithium and rare earth mining projects were being outbid by foreign competition and shuttered before the drills could even break ground. That's no longer the case, and not by a long shot. That's because one $20 stock I'm tracking is perfectly positioned to help America address a looming crisis. The fact that China processes 90% of the minerals that are vital to electric cars, smartphones, TVs, computers, and some of the military's most advanced weaponry. The stakes are so high that last year, this small cap company got a visit from Joe Biden personally. Standing alongside its CEO, Biden asked for help to put 500,000 new electric vehicles on the road by next year, and the company's CEO is more than happy to oblige. This little company, a small cap with a sub $5 billion market cap, is already highly profitable. Last year, its net income more than doubled to nearly $290 million. Its profit margin of 46% makes its operation more lucrative in terms of margins than Apple's, Amazon's, and Google's combined. Analysts are projecting over 100% growth for this company next year, but I find that to be conservative. That's because this company is breaking China's chokehold on rare earth minerals, those hard-to-pronounce minerals like neodymium and dysprosium that go into smartphones, laptops, solar panels, electric vehicles, advanced weapon systems, and much more. One of this company's mines now accounts for 15% of global rare earth production, up from 0 a few years ago. When Biden stood on stage with its CEO, he said, "China controls most of the market in these minerals, and the fact is that we can't build a future that's made in America if we ourselves are dependent on China for the materials that power the products of today and tomorrow." Washington, D.C. has already announced tens of millions of dollars in support to this little company in the form of several government contracts. But its biggest gift to this small company, hands down, is a provision from the $370 billion Inflation Reduction Act that Biden signed in 2022. Known as IRC 30D, This provision gives people a $7,500 tax credit for buying electric vehicles if a sizable chunk of their battery components and critical minerals are made and mined in North American free trade countries. Tesla, GM, Toyota, Ford, and Hyundai are all determined not to miss out on this tax credit. As a result, I believe they will soon turn to this $20 mining stock that controls one of the richest deposits of rare earth minerals in the Western Hemisphere. Analysts forecast nearly a 50% rise in share price for this company in a year. I think that's conservative given how exponentially the EV market is growing. Down the road, I believe this stock could surge 1,000% as it takes on not just the U.S. government, but the richest car companies in the world as clients. You can read all about it in much greater detail, name and ticker symbol included, in my special report, The Rise of Rare Earths, the other essential metal in the $25 billion EV revolution. And that's not all. I'd also like to send you special report number 2, the clean energy dividend powerhouse set to power 33 million homes. Buried in Biden's 274-page, $370 billion climate law is a carefully crafted provision that will help electric utility companies secure a clean energy windfall of up to hundreds of millions of dollars per year, according to Wall Street analysts. It's part of a $220 billion tax credit windfall for companies that produce clean energy, and that's game-changing news for one utility company I'm following. A provision in the law allows it to claim $60 in tax credits for every $100 it spends on solar panel installations, so it plans to add 37 gigawatts of clean energy over the next few years. That's enough to power 25 million homes. This company keeps surprising analysts who underestimated its sales growth by as much as 23% over the past 4 quarters. They really have no excuse considering even the New York Times pinpointed this company as being the best position to profit from clean energy subsidies. But maybe Wall Street analysts will catch on to what this company is truly capable of, because already they're forecasting a 33% rise in share price within a year. But I think they're drastically lowballing it yet again, and that's all before we get to this company's outstanding history of rewarding investors with income. In 1994, it did something almost unheard of for a company dealing in clean energy. It paid a dividend, and every year since, that dividend has grown. Over the last decade, this clean energy dividend powerhouse has hiked its dividend by over 10% a year on average. Its 29-year streak of dividend hikes gives this company the vaunted dividend aristocrat status. And management doesn't want to lose this distinction. They've already declared their intention to hike the dividend by at least 10% next year too. What this means is that this company, an undisputed dividend juggernaut, pays a yield that is already 80% higher than the S&P 500 average. With next year's expected increase, it will pay nearly double what the average S&P 500 company pays. And that's just next year. This company is preparing to more than double its clean energy capacity over the next few years. It already provides power to over 10 million Americans, but in the next few years, I expect it will add tens of millions more households to its customer base. That would mean years, if not decades, of continued dividend growth from here. I would be shocked if the company doesn't grow its dividend by 10% a year through 2027 at least, and I believe it has decades of dividend growth ahead of it. These increases will be extremely powerful over time. This company already pays a significantly higher dividend than members of America's Fortune 500. Locking down a hefty income stream that grows 10% a year is going to be extremely beneficial in the years ahead. Remember, Biden has made no secret of his plans to raise taxes on Americans in his second term, and history shows there's very likely no stopping him now. This prolific dividend champion may be the only company in America that can raise its dividend rates even faster than Biden can raise your taxes. After all, his policies are funneling hundreds of billions of dollars its way, so it's an easy way to turn the table and put government spending in your pocket. Over time, those consistently growing dividends could be like buying Walmart or McDonald's stock in the 1990s if those two dividend champions had had billions in tax credit windfalls behind them. And the third report I'd like to send you centers on a company that could hand you gains much more rapidly, especially if institutional ownership is any clue. Special report number 3, uranium's new royalty. What I've said about clean energy has surely rubbed some people the wrong way. So naturally, I'm going to make some environmentalists angry now too. The fact is, the world can't decarbonize effectively without nuclear power. And after Putin's attack on Ukraine, nations that once shunned nuclear energy are seeing it in a very new light. In July 2023, Poland approved its first ever nuclear power plant. In May, Italy's legislature voted to reverse a 1990 ban on nuclear power. In the UK, the government has launched Great British Nuclear with the goal of increasing nuclear's share of the energy mix from 15 to 25%. In France, nuclear power already supplies 70% of electricity needs, and its finance minister has called the country's nuclear power non-negotiable. Even Japan, which suffered the biggest nuclear plant disaster of this century in Fukushima, is building new nuclear reactors. Nuclear power is essential to the world's decarbonization goals, and also to Western countries' desire to undermine Putin. So it's not surprising nuclear power is seeing a huge global rehabilitation to its image as governments everywhere look to boost it. America is no different. Not only does Biden's clean energy law give tax credits to power plants generating electricity with nuclear energy, it also spends $700 million to create domestic supply lines for high-assay, low-enriched uranium, as well as offers a 30% tax credit on new nuclear power plants. And that's a big opportunity for one small stock I'm tracking. It's leading the charge as the only publicly traded, pure-play company focused on financing uranium mines around the world and acquiring an income stream from their production. According to a recent McKinsey study, demand for electricity is expected to triple as the world shifts away from fossil fuels towards electrification. The resulting need for new, low-carbon and zero-carbon electricity generation will be unprecedented. McKinsey estimates that this energy transition could need an additional 400 to 800 gigawatts of new nuclear capacity to meet the need for dispatchable power. This small-cap company is preparing to help solve this need by providing capital to the uranium sector and generating income for its shareholders. It already owns royalties on some of the highest grade and largest uranium mines in the world. It also owns over 1 million pounds of uranium and has an agreement to buy more. That means it can help solve looming supply crunches while giving its shareholders leverage to rising uranium prices. They're determined to be in the right place at the right time as the uranium bull market kicks into high gear. And when you claim your report, uranium's new royalty, you can be too. All I ask in return is that you take a risk-free look inside to see what my research service, Foundational Profits, offers. I started Foundational Profits to help regular folks from all walks of life profit from my contacts and expertise by managing their own portfolios with help from my insights. Foundational Profits is where that starts. It's where I show you exactly how I'm managing my family's long-term wealth. So in addition to the 3 reports I've mentioned, here's everything you'll receive when you give my premium investment advisory, Foundational Profits, a try. 12 monthly issues. Every month I cover major themes and trends in global economies and markets and turn those insights into action with specific buy and sell recommendations. A model portfolio that typically has 20 companies or funds I'm recommending now to profit from the themes and trends I identify in my research. Any news is covered in the monthly issues, and you get access as soon as you subscribe. Fast-breaking flash alerts. I'll send you urgent updates on any sudden news events, so you won't miss a moment if an opportunity moves. Exclusive interviews. I have the ear of many executives and thought leaders across several industries, and I bring my talks with them directly to you in candid interviews. Ask Me Anything quarterly call-ins. Bring your hardest questions, and I'll address them head-on during this engaging question and answer session. You'll also hear questions from other like-minded investors. These off-the-cuff conversations spark new investment ideas and help you avoid major roadblocks. If you're tired of stock analysts who are aloof or inaccessible, that won't happen with me. Customer support. Our friendly staff are standing by to answer all your questions. They're available by email 24/7 and by phone during regular business hours. But that's not all. In addition to everything above, I want to brief you on one final opportunity that could soar even more quickly than the other plays I've mentioned. That's because it has pioneered a true battery breakthrough. And I know there have been lots of claims about battery breakthroughs recently, from forever batteries to liquid energy breakthroughs. But all these have fallen flat because they focus on the wrong thing. They are trying to come up with a new battery chemistry that bypasses lithium. But the real money is going to be made by simply improving the lithium battery, especially in a way that can be incorporated into existing battery manufacturing infrastructure. I found a company that does just that. It eliminates graphite in the battery anode and instead uses silicon, which is both cheaper and easier to supply. It also isn't at the whim of China, which recently restricted graphite exports amid an escalating tech war. This company's tech also solves other issues and opens up the applications for which lithium batteries can be used. First, it breaks the battery cell down into much smaller, individual strips that are self-isolating. The strips are less likely to catch fire, and even in the freak event they do, the fire doesn't spread to other strips. These silicon strips result in a battery that produces 2 times the energy storage density of traditional graphite cells. And second, these strips are flexible and light, which greatly opens up the applications batteries can be used for. The U.S. Army has already made a purchase order to incorporate them into soldiers' wearable battery packs. And its chairman is T.J. Rogers, who was also the former CEO of Enphase Energy, which was one of those 3 top-performing S&P stocks of the past 5 years. Right now, it trades around $10, with a $1.5 billion market cap. I think it can be a $100 stock as it gets more contracts for small electronics and expands into the electric vehicle battery market. I've put all the details in a special report called The True 10X Battery Breakthrough. It covers the details of the technology, the company's leadership, its current contracts, and why I think it's the right place to allocate some risk-on capital for a chance at significant returns as Biden heads into a second term. I believe this report alone is worth hundreds of dollars, and it can be yours along with all the other research I described when you sign up for Foundational Profits today. Now, I'm sure you're wondering by now how much all of this costs, especially given everything that you're getting. And the answer is a lot less than you probably think. Yes, I've seen research services like Foundational Profits sell for $1,000 a year or more. So I asked myself, what's the absolute minimum I could ask people to pay for this service? What's reasonable? What's fair considering the fundamental value? After all, I put thousands of dollars into researching almost every company I recommend. I travel to work sites, meet with the CEOs and other executives, dig through obscure company filings, and attend seminars and conferences on new innovations in the industry. So after crunching the numbers, I finally settled on a price of $399 per year for this service. Considering everything you receive, you'd be getting foundational profits for pennies on the dollar. But I have some good news. If you complete your order today, you won't have to pay the regular price. Why? Because I'd like to impress you with what's possible when you're investing with foundational profits. You see, I've been in financial publishing since 2007, and I've seen all the disappointing marketing gimmicks. I'd like to prove to you up front that this is something different, something better. I don't have to call in favors or ask my publisher to get you a cheaper price. I am the owner and the publisher. So I've put together a way for you to claim all of this research, not only for a fair price, but more importantly, without committing to anything. That's right. I made payment for my research essentially optional. You'll pay $199 a year for foundational profits. I think that's a steal considering the quality of the research you'll receive and the 4 quarterly call-ins you'll get during that time, during which you can ask me all your investment questions. And better still, it could pay for itself. One single stock win could easily cover your entire subscription cost 10 times over, just like it did for these investors. Like Donald from Cape May, who told me he was pretty lucky with a profit of $27,649. Thanks again. And then there was David from Phoenix who said, I'm up 100% thanks to you. And then there's Anna, an investor who lives in the wine country of Walla Walla, Washington, just south of me here in Spokane, who wrote in and said, up over 200%, I'll let it ride. Cheers. I'm proud of what I've accomplished, but I'm far from done. I hope that the next letter will be from you. The new taxes and trillion-dollar schemes will catch millions of Americans off guard. I don't want that to happen to you. That's why I'm taking on all the risk. I'm willing to completely guarantee your satisfaction. That's why I want to give you the opportunity to review everything I publish for the next 2 months. I think you'll like what you see, but you're in control. There's no obligation to continue your subscription if you aren't completely satisfied. Just say the word and we'll provide a full refund. And don't worry, you'll still get to keep everything we send you, including all 4 research reports. In short, you have nothing to lose and everything to gain. No big media analyst, Wall Street money manager, or overpaid CPA can deliver anything that comes close. So please don't wait. Sign up today. Here's a recap of what you'll immediately receive. Special report number 1, the rise of rare earths, the other essential metal in the $25 billion EV revolution. Special report number 2, the clean energy dividend powerhouse set to power 33 million homes. Special report number 3, uranium's new royalty. And of course, there's your bonus report briefing you on the tiny battery company that's set to receive billions of dollars in federal support. Remember, I've already pointed readers to clean energy gains of 346%, 582%, and 707%. And that's on top of a life-changing 1,639% in just 4 months. But there's so much more ahead. I've done the research and found 4 uniquely positioned stocks for this unprecedented situation. To claim your no-risk trial membership, just click the button below to get started.